When work flies out of control, Harrelson's Own keeps me cool as a cucumber.
When the kids turn unholy, Harrelson's Own keeps my patience divine.
Life can be chaotic, but Harrelson's Own CBD helps keep you calm through any storm. Harrelson's Own consistently delivers you full mind and body homeostasis. It's an organic, full-spectrum CBD in a refreshing oral spray. Our nano-emulsified technology makes it completely water-soluble, so your body absorbs it immediately. You'll start to feel it in seconds, not 60 minutes. It just makes everything feel better. Give Harrelson's Own a try, from our family to yours.
Give your life a boost.
It's just the best you've ever felt in your natural state.
It just feels sensational. Go to sensational.com to order now. Sensational.com.
Go to sensational.com/family for 25% off your order. Yes, 25% off. That's sensational.com/family.
Hello, thanks for tuning in to another episode of NCIA's Cannabis Industry Voice on Cannabis Radio. I'm your host, Bethany Moore. I'm the Director of Communications at the National Cannabis Industry Association. Today, I'm happy to introduce my guest, Kevin Quinlan. He's an entrepreneur and principal in the built environment and building design industries with a 16-year track record of success in quality on project design, engineering execution, and quality assurance. He currently serves as the principal of Mintropy, which provides mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and fire protection consulting engineering services across various market sectors and industries. Kevin is a registered professional engineer and provides professional engineering services nationwide. Additionally, he serves as a board member of a nonprofit organization that provides guidance and resources with an emphasis on one-on-one support for cancer fighters and caregivers. Welcome to the show, Kevin. Lovely to have you today.
Lovely to be here. Thank you, Bethany.
Great. So for our listeners, let's get to know you a little bit better, learn about your background. What kinds of things have you been working on before where you're at now, which is intersecting in cannabis?
Yeah, sure. So I guess we can start from kind of the early stages, but I have always been a very curious individual, mostly intrigued with the physical world, how it works, from an early age, what causes rain, what brings the sun up in the morning, and why does it set at night. Very fond of guys like Fermi, Newton, Oppenheimer. I knew from a very young age that science was something that was a particular fascination of mine, and also a strength, which kind of the two coinciding with one another sort of gave way to the career path that I eventually got into. I can remember back being an 8-year-old and reading the 1988 book, The Way Things Work, cover to cover in a few days, which was really strange for me. I not much of a one to read a 400-page book. Something that was very curious and exploratory for me. Kind of like watching binging a Netflix series or something like that at the time. Anyways, I went on to study physics in college, ended up with an undergraduate degree in physics and mathematics, and then went on to attend graduate school in mechanical engineering. Chose mechanical because I was more interested in dynamic systems than say static systems like structural or whatnot. After I finished up college, I was lined up with a job to go downstate in Illinois to Caterpillar, work for Caterpillar, but wasn't 100% confident that the town of Peoria or moving away from home was really what I wanted to do. So I decided to kind of explore the job market in the city of Chicago and see what else might be out there for me. Landed a interview with a firm then called Tang and Associates. This is back in like 2006, which is a big architectural and engineering firm located in downtown Chicago. Worked on all sorts of large scale city projects, 90-story buildings, large government projects, so on, etc. So I took the job there and started working as a mechanical engineer in commercial building design and joined they called then their mission critical team, which really focused on data center design and alike. Held that position for a while, did several other things in the industry, also worked in industrial facility design, and then eventually kind of got the curiosity and got the confidence under my feet to start something that was uniquely my own. So I was ready to venture off and give this get out of corporate America and give myself a shot, and came up with this word Mintropy, which is a combination of minimize and entropy. Entropy, for those of you that don't know what entropy is sort of the quantification, if you will, of disorder, or we could think of it as chaos. So the word Mintropy is kind of a play on words. It's the idea of our firm is trying to minimize chaos, both from a design perspective, but also from kind of just a life perspective. There's a lot of things that I think that weigh us down in our day-to-day lives that if we can sort of sidestep those things, I think life presents itself in a much more lively and light fashion. So anyways, that's kind of how we got from, there to here.
Yeah. Well, streamlining chaos is one of my specialties, so I can appreciate that. So with that history of where you're at now, where did the intersection with the cannabis movement and cannabis industry come in there? What's your connection to cannabis?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think there's a lot of different ways that we can peel that back, but I think firstly, when we're talking about from a business perspective, our principal function as Mintropy is mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineers, MEP engineers, and we design HVAC, lighting systems, plumbing systems, fire protection. All of these systems are typically hidden behind walls. The occupants in these spaces really don't know they exist for the most part. So our jobs are full of very high-level design, difficult, complicated systems. And for the most part, most people don't know what we do. So, from that perspective, cannabis offers us a completely different world. In the cannabis arena, particularly in the cultivation arena, our systems are front and center. They're out for everybody to see. They are the lifeblood, really, of what's producing these plants. And for me, that's really, really, really cool, and that's really special, and an opportunity to showcase our work. Secondly, I find, going back to the earlier conversation, I find natural systems, our physical world, so cool, and sort of is a core aspect of our business, designing in tandem with nature, and creating these real living ecosystems in a precisely controlled environment. It's quite it's honorable to be able to sort of mimic Mother Nature and all these things: photosynthesis, vapor pressure deficits, hydrological cycle, so on. And I guess lastly, I'm a very big believer in the medicinal benefits of cannabis. We're still developing an understanding of how this plant can improve our lives, from pain, antidepressant, anxiety. Also an advocate of sensible drug policies, the war on drugs that cost our criminal justice system billions of dollars. Sort of all these things combined give me interest in the field.
Yeah, cannabis definitely has a lot of layers and intersection points that bring people together. It really is a community plant as well. And speaking of community, before we take our commercial break, you are involved in one of NCIA's committees, right? Our facilities design committee, which is very active, which I appreciate. Tell me what's going on with the committee and your involvement.
Yeah, so I serve on NCIA's facility design committee. We are constantly looking for to improve standards in the cultivation space, looking for not only GMPs but design philosophies that improve sustainability, energy, product quality, etc. It's a great committee full of a lot of very important people in the industry. I've had an opportunity to kind of cross-pollinate with committee members. Very good committee to be a part of, and very happy to be a part of it.
Yeah, they're super active, and we just published a five-part blog series called Everything You Wanted to Know About Facilities Design, but we're too afraid to ask, or something like that. So that's on NCIA's website for those who want to check that out as well. All right, let's go ahead and take our first commercial break, and then we'll come back and dive into some conversation about sustainability in cannabis cultivation with Kevin Quinlan of Mintropy. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
NCIA's Cannabis Industry Voice will return once we give a voice to our sponsors.
Buffalo Wild Wings has specials on food from 3 to 6, Monday through Friday, and great deals on drinks all day. It's the perfect way to offset a long day. Text that hilarious joke about your boss to your boss.
What? No.
Try a $3 Wild Herd by Goose Island. Set your morning alarm for 6 p.m. That calls for $5 strawberry margaritas. So if you ask your phone why you're still single and...
Ha ha ha. Seriously?
Head to Buffalo Wild Wings. At participating locations, taxes and fees apply. Dine in only. Drink responsibly. Offers vary by location. Void where prohibited.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive save over $700 on average, and those savings add up. Imagine what you could buy in the future.
So I used the savings from switching to Progressive 30 years ago to buy tickets to the championship game. You know, between those two teams that didn't exist 30 years ago. Yeah, I'm a big Alaska Palm Trees fan. Which is a team now, in the future.
So switch to Progressive and save big, because those savings can add up in the future. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. National annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive in 2020. Potential savings will vary.
All right, we're back on NCIA's Cannabis Industry Voice on Cannabis Radio. We're chatting with Kevin Quinlan and his company, Mintropy, and he's also a member of NCIA's Facilities Design Committee. So let's focus a bit on the discussion surrounding sustainability in cannabis cultivation. How can we design our facilities with a focus on that? I mean, it is important to focus on our goals for conserving energy, lowering our carbon footprint, protecting the environment overall in our practices. So let's talk a bit about how cannabis is currently grown in the legal market and how much energy it's taking up to yield our crops.
Yeah, it's very important subject matter, and the science behind it is continuing to evolve. But as for, because we focus on indoor cultivation facilities, we kind of focus my attention on that. So, we like to think about indoor cultivation facilities is basically a swimming pool inside of a data center. You can imagine that requiring a lot of cooling and dehumidification. As far as quantitatively, as far as how much energy that uses, is really a function of how well the facility is designed. Now, if you go back to the early 2000s, Colorado and so forth, we saw residential type furnaces being used to serve those kind of loads. From a quantitative perspective, we could see anywhere between 50 to 250 kWh per square foot of indoor cultivation space. So it's kind of a pretty wide range. But to give you a sense of what that means, it's about 5 to 10 times higher energy density than a typical commercial building or an office facility. Most of the energy that we use in this environment is dedicated to cooling and dehumidification, HVAC purposes, and then lighting. All of these systems can be refined and designed in such a way that we can easily reduce 50% from our baseline energy if we consider the right types of systems. And it really has an effect to an owner's bottom line. It's not just good for the environment, but it's one of those things that really impacts owners and their ability to sort of flourish in this market. And as legalization, federal legalization becomes a real potential, the market will get more and more competitive. Prices will likely drop, and those that are paying attention to these sorts of things will be ahead of the game. So the name of the game is how do we cool, dehumidify, recycle water, and light these facilities more efficiently.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we have the goals in mind of protecting the environment, reducing carbon footprint, because it's the right thing to do. But hey, it's an industry. We have to reduce our costs to do that also, just the bottom line. So it is saving the environment through our business practices. Is that going to impact our bottom line positively or negatively? It's a little bit of both, right?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question, I think, because you can look at it in so many different perspectives. We could talk through so many variables, indoor, outdoor. I will say this, if we were to compare the cannabis industry to the alcohol industry uses somewhere between 8 to 10% of their total operating cost of production. That comes from the energy component. Cannabis, we see anywhere from about 25 to 50% of our total operating costs come from energy. So that's roughly about 2 to 5 times higher. It has a very real impact on our bottom line. And it's something that owners have to take very seriously, and those consequences have to be sort of evaluated in the programming phase, the very early phases before things are laid out and before somebody starts to build anything.
So I mean, there are some best practices or smart practices that we as an industry could start implementing right away. I think you mentioned water reclamation, geothermal energy comes to mind. I'm sure there's other ways we can design our facilities with these creative solutions to reduce traditional energy consumption, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the key topics that we really push in our design is something called integral hot gas reheat systems. And essentially what we're doing there, one of the key aspects of having an indoor cultivation facility is this subject called vapor pressure deficit, which is what we sort of create in the space. the plant basically sees a pressure difference, which allows it to transpire, or in other words, it allows it to give off water from the plant surface or the leaves. So we have to maintain this sort of difference in pressure, and what really controls that is our dehumidification, or how saturated the atmosphere is. Dehumidification requires two things. It requires cooling, subcooling, and then heating. And then just by it in and of itself is an inefficient process, because we're cooling and heating, right? So the idea of integrating a system that can reuse that energy that we originally used for cooling, take that heat and reject it back into the system, is something that we always will design in our systems. A function of that dehumidification, 99% of that water that we feed the plant ends up in the atmosphere, ends up in our HVAC system, and we dehumidify it, we condense that water out. And so we end up with a very large portion of that water that we were feeding the plant in our HVAC system. We want to recycle that water. There's that becomes a little bit more of a subject that we need to talk about in probably a different episode, how we do that, how we
sounds interesting for sure.
How we recycle that. But yeah, in terms of a sustainable environment, which this is one of those things that in the outdoor realm we really can't do, right? Recycle water.
Can't control the weather.
This is very true. Geothermal is another system in terms of heat rejection and coefficients of performance. It doesn't work in every scenario, and there are capital expenditures, but in certain environments, in certain situations, geothermal is a very real solution, and that's something that we also like to use in our toolbox. LED technologies are also a big one. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to see how that works. The geothermal is really fascinating for sure. We have a couple more minutes before our next commercial break, but I wanted to chat about the ongoing discussion about indoor versus outdoor, which you alluded to as well. There's pros and cons on both sides. So let's talk about those higher level issues quickly on both sides as it applies to cannabis cultivation. And honestly, I'm seeing that cannabis, what we're developing in our industry, can impact other agricultural industries as well. Is that right?
Yeah. In the last 5 years alone, we've seen an enormous amount of technology and interest in the cannabis equipment space, not only from HVAC to lighting to water reclamation. We're seeing all sorts of different extraction equipment, et cetera, innovations in genetic engineering that have application for the entire agricultural market. Disease resistance, pest resistance, climate tolerance, biomass improvement, all these sorts of things can be applied universally. But I think, talking more about, the outdoor versus indoor, comparing the two. Indoor, we really have an advantage in terms of the quality of the crop itself. We can precisely control the indoor environment in pretty much every faction. Mold, mildew, pests, we don't have to use pesticides, so forth. So we have a much higher degree ability to control our environment, and furthermore to control the outcome and the quality of the plant. And I'm not saying that in outdoor we can't produce quality, but we certainly don't have the amount of control that we do in the indoor environment.
Yeah, just costs a little bit more, right?
Yeah. So that is the big downside of indoor is obviously the energy demands and the costs associated with construction. So for each particular owner and person that's looking to enter the space, that's a decision that they have to sort of evaluate from a capital side and as well as a future sales side.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's take that commercial break and then we'll come back and wrap up our chat with Kevin Quinlan of Mintropy. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
NCIA's Cannabis Industry Voice will return once we give a voice to our sponsors.
Have you heard? Amazon is now hiring for their new site opening soon in New Albany. Be one of the first to take advantage of launching a new career at one of the best workplaces in the world. Being a part of Amazon includes great benefits and competitive pay, plus many opportunities for advancement. So get a new job today and kickstart a new career tomorrow. Learn more about the perks of working at a new Amazon site. Go to amazon.com/start now. Amazon is proud to be an equal opportunity employer.
All right, we're back on NCIA's Cannabis Industry Voice on Cannabis Radio, wrapping up our discussion about facilities design topics with Kevin Quinlan of Mintropy. He's also a member of NCIA's Facilities Design Committee. I mentioned that committee is super active, makes me so happy. And there is that 5-part blog series on our website, everything you wanted to know about cannabis facility design, but we're afraid to ask. So that's a really good reference for folks to check out on our website as well. And I want to mention a couple announcements as well. Right around the corner here on Thursday, July 28th, if you're in the state of Colorado, especially if you're in Denver, register for our Colorado Industry Social. It's a 2-hour event, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Thursday, the 28th here in Denver. NCIA members receive complimentary tickets, but if you're not a member yet, you can buy some tickets online as well. It'll be a nice evening networking cocktail reception style event. We're slowly wading back into the in-person events here after taking all these extra precautions these last couple of years. But I'm looking forward to seeing a lot of Colorado NCIA members and folks that are in town. And there's definitely several members that are coming from out of town to join us. So that's exciting. And then further down the road, it'll be more than 3 years at this point, but in September 13th and 14th, 2022, we're finally going back to Washington, D.C. We've been hosting our Lobby Days event over Zoom meetings for mainly our evergreen top tier NCIA members. But now we're heading back to DC for our 10th annual Cannabis Industry Lobby Days event. So our government relations team is behind the scenes, getting meetings set up, forming teams of NCIA members as well. So it's important to register early if you know you're going to go. So our government relations team can do all that behind the scenes work before we fly out to Washington, D.C. and march around the Capitol. Really, we're going to the House and Senate buildings to meet with members of Congress and their staffers to talk about the important issues for our industry. And things are a little different now. Thanks and no thanks to the folks, whatever happened on January 6th. So security is a little tight. So things are going to function a little bit differently as far as our access into the buildings, but it's going to be a great event. So be sure to register for Lobby Days. Yay, events. So as we're wrapping up this episode, Kevin, thank you again for being on the show today.
Yeah,
Thanks
definitely.
for
Thank you, Bethany.
Yeah, and for your involvement in our facilities design committee. As I mentioned, they're super active. I love the blog content and podcasts and all this content that you're putting out to share with the industry so that we can be better, stronger, faster, and everything in between. Where can folks find out more about you and your company?
Yeah, they can reach us at Mintropy, www.mintropy, mintropy.com. We have a page that you can input any questions that you have, or our main line is on the website as well. Feel free to give us a call. We are we enjoy speaking with people that have questions or any concerns. We're very relationship oriented at Mintropy. We'd rather shake hands and understand people's problems and fuel our own curiosity and try to come up with answers. So any of those work. Happy to answer project questions as well. So that's a great place to start.
Great. Thank you again, Kevin. And for our listeners interested in any of those events I mentioned or the blog series, everything you want to know about cannabis facility design, but we're afraid to ask, just head to our website, thecannabisindustry.org. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode of NCIA's Cannabis Industry Voice. Until next time.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast, republication, or retransmission of this program without proper consent is prohibited.